This is actually the second time that we're doing this pitch workshop. The first one was precisely 12 months ago. And I'm really happy that we have identified the topic that so many of you are interested in. The reason I'm particularly happy is that our pitches, whether on stage or on any casual event where we tell people about our company, about our idea, about our product, is a key communication tool, because most of the people that we talk to, they're not our customers. They don't know what we do. They don't know exactly who we are. They don't know about our background. They don't use our product, so they're not really aware of everything that we put work in, day out. So whatever we tell them and how we tell it to them is what they will perceive about our product, about our company, about what we do. So communication is very important, and it's important in every single aspect of your marketing. And never forget that you yourself are nothing else than a piece in your marketing puzzle. In fact, when you're at ideation stage, up until when you spend your first marketing money or you have your business partner, you are the only marketing tool of your entire company. So I think it's really important for all of us as founders to put a lot of focus, a lot of emphasis on what we do, on how we can communicate the content, the plans, the ideas that we have, how we convey that message, and also always improve on our skills to communicate our company, our product via language. One last point. It's very important that everybody can learn pitching. It doesn't depend on talent at all. I have or any God-given skill set that you see some people when you see them on stage and you admire them because they're so good. Every single one of us can learn how to pitch. It doesn't matter if you have a quiet voice, a loud voice, whether you're shy or an extrovert. Everybody can pitch, and I've witnessed it myself. The best salesperson I ever saw, her name was Kristen Bannister. She was tiny, she was quiet, she was an introvert, but she kicked all our asses. Bear with me, I will drop a few sentences about me and my background, and my background about sales and pitching in a second. So with that, let me share my screen. In case this doesn't work, Mario, please let me know.
Everything fine.
Perfect. Let's just so you have an idea what we will be going through in the next 60 minutes. We'll start with a few basics about pitching. We will then look into the structure, which also implies the content of what we say in our pitches. The third part will be the delivery. It's the presentation. It's the how you convey, how you deliver your presentation, your pitch. This includes not only when you have a pitch deck, like when you're on stage and present something. There's also a few do's and don'ts when you are on any networking event, on any event where you have to sell your idea, your company to someone. The fourth part is also very important because it's how you practice for the pitch. And it's honestly so unbelievably easy to practice for a pitch, and yet I don't see many people doing it. It's one little trick. I think I only have one slide on that agenda point. And it's so easy to also counter your nervousness when pitching. But we'll look at that after we went through the content, the basics, and the delivery of the pitches. Then finally, I will share some sales techniques that are good for, in general, for sales, for whenever you need to present your product, your company, but also they need to or can be applied in your startup pitches. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Berlin. I studied sports management and business administration in Leipzig, Cologne, Madrid, and London. I worked at a multinational corporate for 3 years before diving into the startup scene. Before founding my company about 2.5 years ago, I lived in Canada for 1 year, which is also where I gained most of the experience that I'm applying today at pitching and selling in general. That is because I worked in door-to-door fundraising for several charities, including Doctors Without Borders, Amnesty International, and the United Nations. So that means that you literally go from door to door, knock on people's houses, and pitch strangers on their doorstep, and have, like, I don't know, 7 to 10 seconds to convince them, first of all, to stay, and to close them eventually as a sign up to support your cause. So I became a pitch trainer there. Also led several teams, and at some point also was responsible for a second office of that company on the French side of the country. Another asset that helped me a lot with pitching was the Founder Institute. That's an accelerator program. This is where you have to pitch your progress for almost 4 months every single week. And this also, and you have pitches from 60 seconds to 5 minutes. So obviously this was also a good experience, good learning. If you're at idea stage, you may want to check that out. I will share my contact details later on. So if you're interested, I can share some ideas and insights later on. I won't make this an advertising session, just so you have an idea of what I actually do. So I founded Honest and Rare. That's an online marketplace for specialty drinks. That means that we give small manufacturers of both alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks a platform where they can promote their products, where they can become visible, and where they can sell their products online to customers. So we only do the platform. We don't have a warehouse. We don't do the distribution. It's only drop shipping. So see us as Etsy, eBay, Amazon Marketplace for drinks. And on the other hand, obviously, customers get access to great drinks they usually wouldn't be able to find in their local supermarket. All right, that's it for the intro. Let's start with our first item for today. For starters, let's clarify that pitching is no different than selling. When we pitch something, we sell something. It's just that when we talk about our business idea, about our startup idea, we call it pitching. But in the end, both is defined as convincing someone of something. That's the goal. So the style is different. The style is the same. The way you do it, even the goals are congruent between pitching and selling. It's exactly the same thing. And in fact, you pitch all the time. You even pitch when you ask your friend to go partying with you. You pitch when you ask for a salary increase. You even pitch on your first date with someone. That's obviously a longer pitch, but it's also the same. Always, everything comes down to convince people of something. The second basic I want to share is that there's always the debate when you get to come into sales trainings, pitch trainings, rhetoric classes, and so on. There's always a debate about what matters more, what we say or how we say it. And usually what you see are these numbers. People say that 30% of what you say, only 30% of, no, sorry. What matters less is what you say, the content. That's a 30%. What weighs more is how you say it. That's a 70%. To be honest, I don't really share this sentiment, at least for us as startup founders, because I wouldn't weigh more emphasis on one or the other. It's possible that you get a one-time shot, a one-time win when your delivery is super perfect. But in the long run, whatever you say, whatever you promise, whatever you say that your plans is, will matter just as much. So I would look at it for both content and delivery. I don't understand why you should not make both perfect if you have the time to prepare for both. It's probably usually people who give you these numbers are sales trainers who are pitch trainers who have no idea about business. They have no idea about startups. They don't know what to do. So of course, they tell you that it matters more how you deliver a pitch. That's more or less like asking your hairdresser if you need a haircut. Finally, for basics, it's important that you always have a short deck and a long deck. The short deck is the version that you present, so when you are there. The long deck is the one that you send to people, and they need to understand your company and your business without you being there and explaining it to them. So obviously the long deck has way more words, while the short one is where you present it. So it has way fewer words. We will actually get to that topic later on too. So never make the mistake and present the long deck in a pitch event scenario. So where you're on stage and you actually use your mouth, your communication to tell people about your problem, your solution, and so on. By the way, I think this also goes for general speech. So when you are on a networking event, when you're on the conference, at any convention, there you also should have several lines of pitching always in place. For example, I have a compendium. It's a note. And whenever I think of a cool line by the way, I mean, it's a one-liner and then a longer one. For example, if you send someone an email where you want to explain what you do, and I don't know, there are so many occasions where we have to apply to a program, where we have to submit a form and sometimes they ask you for 10 words, sometimes they ask you for the size of a tweet. And in my opinion, I mean, it's not a must, but in my opinion, you should always have these sentences, these lines ready. So as I said, I have a compendium of notes where I have it both in German and English. I have the one-liner, I have the longer version, and so on. And whenever I come up with a cool new idea, a cool new line, which for me is usually when I shower or when I drive, then I just take out my phone and type it in there. So I always have the cool lines at disposal. That's it for the basics. Let's look into the structure, which is also the content of what you are pitching to people. This is everything that should be part of your pitch. So this is the whole agenda. It goes from problem to ask. Some of them are optional. I will mention that once we get to the individual item. Also, obviously, there are different time windows for pitching. We have pitch event hosts are very creative with giving us different times for pitching. So we always have to adjust. It's super annoying, but I guess it's part of the game. So sometimes it's 8-minute pitches. Sometimes I've had 6 and 7 minutes too. In the US American context, 3 to 4 minutes is very common. But then you also have 60-second pitches, 90-second pitches, and so on. For all of those, you need to adjust. In general, this is the ideal typical agenda, what you should include in your pitch. However, I'll mention that later again, but just to be clear, the most important part of your pitch is the problem and solution. Think about it that the rest doesn't matter, because what does it help if someone knows about your market, your competition, your team, if they haven't understood what your problem and the solution is that you're tackling? So make sure to focus on the first two, make sure that everybody understands what you do before you move on. So what I want to say is, if you have a 60 seconds pitch, then of course, leave everything out, focus on problem and solution. But we'll get to that in a bit. The first item of your pitch is always your problem. You can also call it the need, a market need. It's basically the same thing. Because your product is always the solution to some problem, this is where we start. There's in general 2 different ways of describing the problem. The first one is your personal experience. That is more the storytelling way. The other is explaining the problem, the problem from a more global perspective, like describing how the market works and what need you have discovered and so on. So in a personal experience, what you would do, you would mention the problem that you had. assuming, or you have already proven it, you have already validated that this is a problem not you only have, but everybody else has too, or a big fraction of the market. So that can be, I don't know, a pen, like I'm seeing pens here on my desk, a pen that only has one color, and you were annoyed to always switch between different pens to get different colors. So what you came up with is a pen that can give you 10 colors in one single pen. So this is the personal experience, and it's very good for storytelling. The other way is, again, as I said, that you have a market insight and you explain that there's a problem. I will make an example about with my pitch in a second. After you have addressed the problem that you're looking at, that you want to tackle, you explain the solution to that problem. The solution is not yet the exact product. It's more the general idea of how you are solving that problem. This is, it's not necessary to separate the solution from the product, but I think in many ways it makes sense to describe the general idea of the solution for people to understand the bigger picture. So, for example, I would say that for our case, small drink manufacturers have online distribution problems on the one hand. On the other hand, customers are looking for alternatives to buy great drinks instead of the standard mass products from the supermarket. That's a problem statement. The solution is that we connect them via an online marketplace so that customers can discover and buy products directly from small drink manufacturers. This is the problem and solution. In the next step, I would show the product and elaborate more on the product, go into the details of the product. So for me, this would be a screenshot of the website. You can show your prototype, your MVP, your product. If it's an offline pitch event, then you could show a sample or give it into the crowd so it makes a circle. This is where you explain more how the product works. As a next step, you would explain the business model. This is a very US American perspective on the pitch. In German, Geschäftsmodell means the way that the business works. It's what in the US American context people would understand about product. In the US American context, and this is what is mostly used also in Germany when you visit pitch events or any pitch occasion, it means how the product makes money, how the business makes money. So we could also refer to it as the finance model. So what is the revenue model of the product? Obviously, if you are buying and selling goods, then it's quite obvious what the business model is. But it's possible that you have a subscription model in place, or you have a very smart way of doing retention marketing. So in all these cases, you need to explain how the business is actually financing itself. As a next step, after you have explained the product and the business model, you need to say what the market is that you see yourself in. Since that's mostly very obvious, what you would do is address the market size. So what is the market size? What is the potential revenue that you could get, or the potential revenue of the market that you are about to enter? I'm sure if you have pitched before and you already have a pitch deck, then you know this threefold clustering of TAM, SOM, and SUM. So that's total addressable market, serviceable addressable market, and serviceable obtainable market. To be honest, I always found that very confusing and a bit overloaded for a pitch. There's nothing wrong about it. You can definitely do that. I've never seen anyone get any criticism for that. I personally think it's enough to mention this one number, you know, the market size, and maybe what fraction of that you're actually addressing. It would be a lie to just say that all of the market is yours. In our case, for example, not the entire drinks market is our market potential. It's the medium to upper price segment. It's the specialty drinks. It's not the normal Coke that people buy at the grocery store. And also it's the online segment, not only the offline one. What also you could do in the market chapter of your pitch deck is to describe the target audience. That's usually too much for a pitch, but if you're in B2B, and it might be a very distinct, a very special target group that you're addressing because you have that special insight, then you should also lose a few words on the target cluster that you're addressing with your market. Probably the hardest for all of us as founders is the competition, because it's just so much to communicate. We always struggle with this point, and what happens a lot is that people just leave it out because they don't know how to condense all this information about the whole market, all the players on the market, into one slide, into a few seconds. And this is the biggest mistake that you can do, because people look for easy criticism. If you are at a pitch event, may it be online or offline, doesn't matter. People look for easy ways to criticize you. I mean, they usually take place in the evening. People are tired. They may not have listened to your pitch properly. They may not have understood what you do. They may not really like you, whatever. So they look for easy ways to criticize you. So what they will say is, what is the competition? Why didn't you mention it? And something that people would assume or think is that you think that you have no competition. And this is always wrong, because you always have competitors. So it's important that one way or the other, you address the competition. And it can be super, it's just that you mention it. It's not how good you do it. So let me give you an example of what I always did. I always said, or even still say, there are many online drink shops, but almost all of them lack a distinctive positioning or a unique customer value. Especially, there's no drinks platform that's aggregating all the drinks from the landscape in one place. You see, it's not even very good. It doesn't really touch the competition, to be frank, but it somehow addresses the competition. It summarizes from a very high top level perspective. And that's enough. Later on, people can ask, but the biggest mistake you can do is not mention the competition at all. Go-to-market is one of those items that you could consider optional. But usually, if you are in a crowd of people who really know how businesses work, how startups work, they know that distribution is the hard part. It's not developing the product and so on. How you sell the product is the biggest challenge. So you may want to share your ideas on how you want to reach your customers. You should always, obviously, always also present the team. Maybe that you're solo founder, that you're solopreneur, doesn't matter. Just lose a few words on who the team is, who you are. Again, obviously, you have little time, so you do that in a very condensed way. For example, saying, I'm responsible for the business side. My co-founder, she is responsible for the programming. We have a designer and so on. So you don't need to repeat the whole CV of your team. Just give some insights into who your team is. Also, what you see a lot on pitch events is that people, they stack up the slide with all the advisors that they have. This usually looks like you don't have a team and you want to make it that you look big, as like a big team. I wouldn't really do that. I would focus on the core team in these small pitches. And later on, when you talk to people who are still interested in you, then you have a chance to also go into more detail of who's in your advisory board and so on. Something that you can also do on this slide when you present it to people, you can just show a logo of the company that your team, your co-founders and so on worked at. This way you don't have to spare any words on it, but people see what their background is, and maybe it's even, ideally it's in the industry that you're operating in today. Traction is very important because there's a big misunderstanding about what traction is. Usually when we are asked, or you are asked whether you have traction, you will say no, because we understand under traction, financial traction. So do we already generate revenue? And it's fine that it's not happening yet, because building a company, building a startup takes time, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, and it goes in small steps. But the truth is that everything that you're doing right now, that you're doing today, that you done yesterday is part of the traction. It's all assets that build up, that play into building up your company. The financial traction is only the outcome. It's the result of the things. So your product, your company is nothing else than a value creation machine. And this value creation machine consists of many things. It may be that you visited an accelerator program. It may be that you have your product line. It may be that you have your brand, your corporate identity, that you have spoken to 20 customers, that you have identified 30 industry experts that are willing to share their insights with you. It may even be that you visited certain conventions, that you read a book about it, and so on. Everything that you do that helps to further your company is part of the traction. I never understand. I mean, you can be a fleshed out capitalist, but you should always show some depth, some interest into the build-up of a company. So never underprice and underestimate yourself. When you're talking about traction, someone asks you about traction, always mention all the milestones, all the achievements that you have done till this day. And the financial side, the financial traction, the revenue is only one step away. May it be a few steps away, doesn't matter, but you always have traction when you work on your company. In the end of a pitch deck, this is again a very US American view on things, is that you should have an ask. An ask is something that you ask for in the end, because the general understanding is, think of the first slide of this presentation, that pitching is selling. So selling means to convince someone of something, which means if you pitch, you always have a goal. You want something from the people that you're talking to. This may be that you're fundraising, so you're asking, yeah, we are raising 50,000 euros. Maybe that you're looking for co-founders. It may be that you're looking for industry experts, whatever. It doesn't matter. You can also show the roadmap, what comes next, and you can ask for support on the steps in that roadmap. But always make sure that in the end, you have an ask at the end of your pitch. That's it for the structure and the content of your pitch. And let's go over to the delivery of how you convey your message properly. I think something that we see way too often is too many words on slides. It's it's just overwhelming. It's such an easy fix to just limit your words, your phrase to 5 words per slide. 5 because that's when people just use their brain to take a snapshot. They just look at the words and then understand the meaning of the sentence without reading it word by word. And it's such an easy fix because it's impossible to listen to you and to also read everything that is on your slide. And you need to be the center of attention. You're just making it harder for people to follow you. And this is how you lose people. So your presentation should always support your speech, but not the other way around. Everything you want when you're pitching is to make it as easy as possible for people to follow you. Once they have to use brain power to follow you, you will lose them because people are lazy. Every human being is lazy. And it's easily proven if you think of yourself, of your, I don't know, former teachers, your professors, of any public talk that you saw where someone is hard to follow, is is speaking very quietly, or too fast, or I don't know, the content is too complicated. Everything that makes it hard to follow will in the end only make you suffer with your pitch. So you should make it as easy as possible. And there's certain ways, there's a few ways how you can achieve that. One of them is to make sure that you are the focus of the pitch and not your presentation. It only supports you. Another way to make sure that it's easy to follow you is the speed and clarity. So it's how fast you speak and how clear the words are that leave your mouth. We usually tend to really rush the presentation. to rush through the presentations, because a pitch, a presentation is always a stress situation. So we go way faster than we're supposed to. It really helps to, especially actually for both speed and clarity, to practice. We'll come to that later too. But if you just practice your pitch in front of people like your family, your fiance, your friends, whoever, they will point your attention to whatever didn't go well, that you're too fast, maybe you don't speak clear enough, and so on. But in pitch training, something that we did that you can also do is to speak very, very slowly. It's very good practice. It's super annoying and super awkward, but it helps you to really pace down with your speed, speak more clear, and this way never lose someone, but make it easy for them to follow and understand you. Another thing that makes it easier to follow you is downswings. So in our language, we have upswings and we have downswings. Upswing is when at the end of the sentence you go up. For example, how are you today? I'm good, how are you? So it goes up, while a downswing is, I'm good today. My name is Yascha. I'm giving a pitch presentation. So at the end of the sentence, that's the end. Nothing else follows after that. While with an upswing, you're expecting something to happen. And even if it's a monologue, like a pitch is, you expect yourself to say something afterwards. You know these awkward situations where you say, next we will do this. It's not over, right? So something needs to follow. Next we will do this, and oh yeah, that's it. It's very stressful for people because people need to know when the end of something is. So when you use upswings all the time, and this happens when you don't practice your pitch, if you do it spontaneously, and it doesn't work to pitch spontaneously in a 3-minute pitch, which is like a race, but again, we'll get to that in a second. So you have upswings all the time, and you know it from people. This is our plan for next year. It's way better and way easier to follow when you say, this is our plan for next year. It also shows confidence. So make sure that you pay attention to your upswings and downswings in everyday language, but especially in your pitches, because downswings is what makes things to come to an end and what makes you easier to understand. Something else regarding speed, and in order to support the speed of your pitch, is to it's actually very easy. It's to just pause between topics. We all have the problem that we will rush through the pitch. It will be way faster than we want to, way faster than we hope that we speak. So a very easy way is to just between topics to use a small pause. It can be 1 second, doesn't matter. Just, a change of rhythm within your speech really helps people to just take a second to let the information sink in and be ready for your next chapter. All right, we have everything up until now was about how you deliver your pitch with your verbal communication. We will get to the nonverbal communication now. Let's just wrap up so you see what we have done so far. Again, you have your content of the pitch, the structure, everything that needs to be included. That's the content, it's what you say, and the order of how you say it. Then we have spoken about making it easy to follow you, so that people can easily follow you. You don't make it hard for people to inhale your content. You don't want to make it an effort for people to follow you. We have spoken about the speed and clarity. Make sure to not be too fast. Make sure to not eat up the words, but be very expressive about what you say. You use downswings to also make it easier to follow you, and you pause between topics. So let's look at what you can do on stage in order to make it even better, to make your performance even better of how you convey your message. There's a few do's and don'ts. The first one is how you stand on stage. And the best and the standard position that you have is to just stand straight. Not at an angle, just stand straight, your feet shoulder wide, In sales, we always say plant your feet. This means like actually plant your feet into the ground. This way you signalize confidence, and it actually works both ways, in both directions. So first of all, you signalize confidence to your audience, which is key to your pitch, but also you signalize confidence to yourself, because your body posture really influences how you feel and how you perceive yourself. Of course, you can, I won't go into this because that's very hard to show over video conferencing, but you should have some stage movement, like slowly going forward, taking some steps back, going sideways, never too fast because that's also distracting people. But in general, your standard position should be to stand straight. Something that we all wish we didn't have on stage is our arms and hands, because they always feel like it always feels awkward to have them. But the truth is that it's totally fine and it looks super natural to just have your hands hang down. You can watch yourself in the mirror. You can watch others people presentations. If you just stand with your hands down, it feels awkward to us, but it's super normal. So this should be your normal position. Don't have your hands in your pockets. Don't have items in your hands. This is just a sign of insecurity because you don't know what to do with your hands. It's totally fine to let them down. And then you use one hand once in a while, or both hands to gesture. I think that's here. So I will try to. So there's a few standard things that you can do. I believe you can see me in the screen here. So a few standard ways of non-verbal communication of hand gestures are, for example, whenever you say on the one hand, on the other hand. Whenever you talk about others and yourself, so you would say they or us. They do this, we do this, our, I. Numeration, also very easy to implement into your pitch. First, we're gonna do this, then we're gonna do that, then we're gonna do that. Another way is, I call it the hammer. I don't know what the professional term is, to be honest, but whenever you want to accentuate something, like this is why, that's because, so we came up. So you just point at something. People sometimes do this with the finger. I think that's very impolite. Just do a fist or something. But whenever you want to emphasize a single word, you can raise your hand and do this hammer movement. Another way is, what else? Pushing away. That's not our problem. You just push it away. That's nothing that can happen to us. Another gesture that you can always implement is negation. Not at all. Won't happen to us, and so on. When you want to symbolize ongoing things, you can do and so on, or more and more. Yeah, I think that's about it. I might, if you're interested, I can repeat them later on when I finish the presentation. I think you will have a bigger viewport of how you will see me. But yeah, keep in mind, there are a few standard gestures that you can always use. On the one hand, on the other hand. It's always, by the way, when there's contrasts or comparisons. First they do this, we do this. Our problem is this, but the solution is this. Numeration, first to 1, 2, 3. More and more. Moving on. Not at all. These are a few very standard that you use daily, but of course, in a pitching situation where you're stressed, you may not think of them. So it's important that you're aware that some of them are so normal, so standard, you use them daily, so you should also implement them into your pitches. By the way, there's that's also hard to show over video conferencing, but it's also totally possible to use this one hand or the other on stage. So as I said, your standard positioning is to stand straight, your feet planted in the ground. Always put your shoulders back, because this again shows confidence also to yourself, but also to your audience. And it's possible to do on stage when you talk about the problem that you move to the left side or to one side of the stage. When you talk about the solution, you go to the other side. When you talk about the product, you go there. When you talk about the business model, you go to the other side. So people get used to you moving when you switch a topic, and it also helps them to follow your pitch better. Something that also happens sometimes, and I think that's the worst thing, to be honest, is that people focus on one person in the audience, like a stare down. This is a big problem. I mean, the reason why it happens is normal. It's because we are stressed, we are nervous, and we look for back channel support in the audience. So we try to identify a small, not a small face, a kind face, a nice face, or someone that we know, and then we look at them all the time. This is very, very impolite and very hard for other people to follow because they get excluded. And when you pitch to people, you want to include them all, but you never want to exclude anyone. Something that you can do, this is a bit advanced, it's quite hard to do, is a W in the audience. So you literally do a W with your eyes. So you start in the left corner of the audience, then you go down. That's the first line. Then you go to the center, then you go to the right, and then you go to the upper right corner. Again, that's when usually you have to focus on what you're saying on your pitch. It's hard to focus on your eye movement. So what you also can do, just float horizontally over the stage. But the only thing you should do is try to include everyone, and especially not look one person in the eyes all the time. I've seen it several times, especially in the pitching scene. It's very, very annoying, hard to follow. You should not do it. It's actually like when you cheers to people. I think it's a part of Knigge even. When there's 5 to 6 people, you're supposed, when you cheers, like you're standing in a circle, then you're supposed to look every participant of that circle into the eyes. But then Knigge says, as of 6, 7, 8 people, you should not look everybody in the eyes. You should just move your glass and float around the people in the circle. So you just want to make it appear as if you have looked at everybody. Why not making eye contact with every single one of them? And the same goes for your pitches. When you are pitching and you have an audience in front of you, try to include them all with your eyes. This is quite obvious, and I'm sure you've heard that before. Make sure to not hide behind items. First of all, it signalizes insecurity. And also, even more important, it again takes attention away from you. Never forget, you are the center of attention. You don't want anything else on stage to be in the center of attention. Hiding behind items is one of those things that is stripping concentration away from you. Something that I consider helpful is to place a timer. Some pitch localities, they have this. If they don't have one, try to put a timer, to place a timer somewhere. The reason is that you need to be able to adjust your pitch, although that's very hard, but you need to adjust your pitch in case that you stumble, that you mess up. Because there's nothing worse than being cut off by someone else. I think it's very unprofessional. And if you're honest and you've seen someone not finish their pitch, it always feels a bit weird and puts the startup founder, the pitcher, in a very bad light. So you should always make sure to come to an end. And the timer helps you. So if you have messed up, if you have stumbled upon something, then you should see the timer and adjust your pitch. And again, I think it's very unprofessional to not finish your pitch properly. I mean, we're supposed to build businesses, so I think it can be expected that we finish our pitch that we have had a lot of time to prepare for in the given time window. That doesn't mean that you cannot mess up, that you cannot stumble, that you cannot have a blackout. All that happens is totally fine, happens to me, no problem at all. All I want to say is you need to have a fallback plan. So this is why you have the timer. Fallback plan for pitches means that you are ready, that you know when you have stumbled upon something, that you know which slides you will skip or which sentences you will cut away from your pitch in order to make it on time, in order to not be cut off by someone else, so that you are in control, not someone else taking control over you. And you will, for the rest of the evening, you will be the one that never came to an end with their pitch. So have a fallback plan, be aware of what you will be cutting away, be aware of which slides to skip in order to finish your pitch in the given time. This is a few final remarks on your presentation. It's quite obvious, but let's reemphasize. Make sure that your presentation is readable. Make sure that the font size is big enough. Again, it always comes back to making it easy for people to follow your pitch. That includes listening to you, but also viewing your presentation. So make sure the font, the presentation is readable, the font size is big enough. Don't use too many colors. That's very distracting. Try to not use animations. The reason is, I mean, for once, it's not state of the art, but also you never know what the computers that people are using at such events. It may be a slow machine and your animation will look cluttered. It's also, I mean, most of the pitch events I know, they preload the 20 or 30 pitch decks. So it's a very heavy machine and your animations will not look good. I mean, of course, you can have videos and so on, but always make sure that then you have your own computer or you have tested it before. Just try to avoid things that will strip away control from you. Things that come unexpected. That's the thing you want to avoid. Perfect. That's it for the delivery. So we have gone through the content, through the what, through how you convey the message, what you can do in order to support your pitch, what you can do in order to make it easy for people to follow you. Let's look at how you can practice for your pitch before we come to the final chapter today. It is super easy to practice for your pitch. And as I said in the beginning, yet many people don't do it. The single key to success, this sounds like a very bad book, but the single key to success with your pitch is to write it down word by word and learn it by heart. I mean, literally write it down word by word, including breaks, including including pauses, including even when you want to say M. Everything that you are going to say, you should write down and you should learn it by heart. You should read through it 50 to 100 times. So when you think of slide number 7, then you know exactly what to say at slide number 7. It is the only way that you can make sure everything you plan to say in your pitch, you will actually say. There's so many people, especially when I did the Founder Institutes, every week you listen to 20 people, and because it's so many people pitching, you have only 60 seconds. I don't know why people, they do it spontaneously. It's impossible to spontaneously pitch your whole idea, your startup, everything you have been doing, all your problems, your challenges, the market, everything into such short time frame without being prepared. So don't get me wrong. I don't mean normal presentations to learn them by heart and write them down. Like this one, for example, like my presentation right now, my speech. Obviously, it's not scripted. I have no pressure. I have time. I can just speak casually. But a pitch is a race. Someone gives you a certain time frame of 1 minute to 8 minutes where you have to finish everything that you're saying. So it's crucial that you know exactly word by word, second by second, what you're going to say. And that's all to it. You should look at, you should consider a pitch like a race. Think of a Formula One driver. A Formula One driver would never start the race without having driven the track the lab before for practice, super slowly. So they need to know, although they're professionals, they need to exactly know when they turn left, when they turn right, when they go straight. And the same goes for you. You can get rid of all your problems, of all your nervousness, get more control of your performance on stage when you know exactly word by word what you're doing. It's the same in sales, by the way. Whenever you're getting sold by anyone something, even when I worked in fundraising for charities, it's all scripted. It's all word by word is written down because you know exactly what works and you can prepare how to convey the message. You should never do it spontaneously. Another good advice for practice is to record yourself. Just use your phone, record yourself and listen to it. Because this way you will encounter yourself when you speak too fast, when you eat up too many words, when you don't do pauses enough. It really helps to listen to yourself. And the other advice is to present to others. I know that this is always said, and we tend to not do it because we're lazy and we don't want to annoy others. And also, usually it feels awkward to pitch 10 times in front of our friend, fiance, or family member, whatever. But this is actually crucial because they point your attention to things that you never knew about. And it gives you kind of the life situation. So it shouldn't be the first time when you enter a stage or when you pitch online, which we will have for the upcoming months, more than we want probably. But when you present to others, that is somehow imitating the real life scenario. So make sure to write down your pitch word by word, make it super scripted. Don't try to be better than you have to and convince yourself that you can spontaneously do the pitch within 180 seconds. It's impossible. Learn it by heart. Make sure to record yourself, listen to yourself, and present to others. Like try to imitate the life situation as good as possible. Okay, we're actually good in time. I think I have 2 or 3 last remarks on miscellaneous things before I will finally share some sales techniques that you can use in your everyday sales and your pitching. You probably already do, but let's theorize on them so you are actually aware of certain aspects of certain techniques that that you get confronted yourself in daily situations. I just wanted to very quickly talk about nervousness. So first of all, it's normal that we're all nervous when we pitch, when we're on stage. Not only when we pitch, whenever we're on stage. So don't think it's something abnormal. Just accept that everybody is nervous and it's a stress situation. That's super normal. The second thing is, it will go away the more you do it. So when you think that it's such a stress situation, you want to avoid it, you don't want to pitch anymore because it just stresses you out so much. The more you do it, the more it will fade out. It's with everything in life. It's with everything in life. Once you have experienced it yourself, you will see it's not as bad as you thought it is. And the same goes for performing on stage. So yes, you are nervous, accept it. But second thing, be aware that it will go away the more you do it. And the third advice I can share is, again, just learn your pitch by heart. Because I think one of the main reasons is why we are nervous on stage is because we are scared, we're frightened to lose control. And the only thing that we cannot control in advance is our performance, our speech, is how we move and how we talk. Everything else, whatever we wear, how our beard, our hair is made, we can control all that in advance. I mean, our face is our face. We will not change that, but it's something that we are in control beforehand. Also, you will not fall over the stairs. It will just not happen. So everything you can control. The single thing that we believe we cannot control is the pitch. It's the speech that we give, because this is a just-in-time performance, obviously. So again, this brings me back to the advice on the practice. Make sure to learn it by heart, to know exactly what to say when, and this will strip away a lot of your nervousness. because it will not happen to you. It cannot happen to you that you don't know what to say when. So you're in more control when you're on stage. Another item in this small chapter of miscellaneous things regarding pitching is feedback. I think we have that's a very personal opinion, but I think we have a big problem with feedback in the startup ecosystem. Because whenever we are at some pitch event, some pitch contest, there's people giving us feedback on our idea, our business, our product. And we usually take this very personal because we are the product. This is our idea, right? So, and it can be devastating. And people may not have enough empathy to realize that what they say is actually hurting people. I think you should always consider that these are people who probably have no idea about what you just told them. They may not have understood it. I don't want to generalize, by the way. There's, of course, people who worked in the same industry as you. They are very, very much capable of giving you good feedback. But in many circumstances, you have people in the jury or whoever gives you feedback. They have no idea. They may not even have understood your product, your problem, your industry, but they are supposed to give you feedback. And they are forced. I mean, they also don't want to look like a fool in front of the others. They want to say something. And you can always think of investors, of business angels, of VCs. As you know, it is said that you need to invest into 20 to 25 companies, startups, for one or two of them to make an actual profit, to make where they grow 10x and you can have a good exit. This means that people who have full disclosure of your company, of your startup, so they do a technological due diligence, they do a financial due diligence, they do a people due diligence. So they have all information at place to make a call whether to invest in you or not. And yet they fail at investing. It just happens. VCs perform worse than the NASDAQ, normal indexes on the market. I just try to prove the fact. I just want to make sure that you don't don't overestimate the feedback that you are given. It's normal that people will give you feedback. It's fine, but they may not even have understood what you just told them. They may not know your industry. They may be tired. They just want to say something to look like a fool or whatever. This all doesn't mean that feedback is not important. I just think that you should use the feedback and make the best out of it, which means try to identify which part of the feedback is actually worth for you to work on. The reason I spent some time on this is I have heard weird feedback. I've gotten weird feedback. And I think it's wrong to just say things to someone for the sake of saying something. All right, the final chapter of the talk today, and I think we're actually hitting the 60 minutes mark. So bear with me for 3-4 more minutes. One of the best sales techniques, this is actually not something that you do, it's something that you express. And I'm using I am the greatest as a symbol, as a metaphor for confidence. It is proven, and I've seen it so many times, that you perform best, you sell best when you are confident, when you feel that you are in the best position, that you are the best, that you are the expert, in fact, that you are the greatest. It is I think it's the secret sauce to be good at sales and at pitching. Whenever you feel not confident, and it's normal to have a bad day, to be in a bad mood. So if you do sales, then do something else on that day, because you will just perform way better when you have the confidence, when you feel that today you are at your best and you are in your beast mode. And whenever you enter stage, you should be in beast mode. The second thing about techniques, about ways you can use for your sales, for your pitches, is honesty. it makes it very, it creates a lot of sympathy, and it makes it very natural if you don't know everything. I think that sometimes as startup founders, we think that we need to know everything, but that is a big lie. We don't. And I have experienced that that it makes a lot of sense, and people actually take you more serious if you're just honest. If you just say, I don't know what that challenge is, I don't know what will come after that step. It's totally fine. No one expects you to know everything. And it's actually a good sales technique because it makes you authentic. Something that is used in sales and in general in sales and pitching a lot is humor. So you can always implement a few jokes. It highly depends, I would say, on your character. So if you're more the jokey, the humoristic kind of person, then do that. It works very well. I used to have a pitch where I also implemented one joke. It can work very well, especially if it's at the end of your pitch. Also in sales, whenever you get sold your next mobile contract or insurance, when salespeople make jokes, these are standard jokes. So they have made that same joke 10 times on that day. So sales and pitching, of course, there's some art and some magic, but usually it's it's evidence. It's things that you know that work, so you try to repeat them. And humor and jokes is one of them. What's very important in sales, and you see that with big corporations, with the big startups, with any big company that you follow in the media, is to create urgency. Urgency means why things need to be done now. So it's a time aspect. While you should always emphasize why it's important to do something. This should actually be switched around. Sorry about that. So importance is why it's important to be done, and you should emphasize that because this is how you will get your customers. This is how you will get investors. This is how you will get resellers for your product. And you should always emphasize why it's important to do now, because the market is growing, because customers are wanting this right now, and so on. But urgency and importance is part of every sales speech that you will be giving. Should be, at least. Jones effect is something you also see a lot in marketing in general, especially in sales. So Jones is used as a synonym for everybody else. It means, so if you're at a conference and you're trying to sell your product to generate leads, you would say, oh yeah, Jones over there already bought a product from us. And this means that if Jones did it, then this person should do it as well. This goes hand in hand with fear of loss. So you know FOMO, fear of missing out, and it's something that's built into us as humans. We never want to lose out. We're jealous. Humans are jealous in every regard. So we don't want to miss out on something that others have. So Jones effect is when you watch ads, some testimonial, I don't know, buying this insurance, and then you think, oh yeah, I also need that insurance. So make sure that you use testimonials, that you use the Jones effect, make examples. So if someone is your target audience, then use someone else from that target audience to convince them that they also need it because they're in the same cluster. And this brings me also to the end of my talk. You should always, with your pitch, with your sales speech, come to an end. As I said, it's a given time frame. You have a given window of 1 minute to 3 minutes to 5 minutes, and make sure that you come to an end. Also, when you are at any casual networking events, when you are talking to people, when you're talking to your family, you have 10 seconds, 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds to make them be interested in you and your product and your company. And if you're good at reading mimics and understanding face language, then you would be able to see that when the mimics change. So someone talks to them and they just go in circles, they bore them. You can see how the listener is just fading out. They're just not interested anymore. So you need to make sure that you know exactly what you say for your pitch when you have a formal presentation, but also for any sales talk, for any any scenario, any setup where you pitch something to people, make sure that you come to the point, that you emphasize what is important. You don't need to mention everything, and again, to always come to an end with your speech, which is what I'm going to do now. I thank you all for your attention, and finally, I want to share, if you want to connect afterwards, you can shoot me an email. If you want to connect over LinkedIn, you can, if you use my first and last name, there should only be one match. There's also my phone number if you want to connect via WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram. Feel free to reach out. And again, thanks for joining today.
Thank you very much, Yascha. We have two questions which are kind of in a similar way. So they wanted to ask if there's any difference between a real stage and the online stage.
Mostly for the way that you, that's a very good question, by the way. I would say for the content, for the structure, it's not. Because however you present the content of your pitch is no different at all. It should be exactly the same. So the pitch deck that I used for offline pitching is the same that I use today when I pitch virtually. But of course, it's different because you are sitting, you're not standing, you don't, you cannot do the stage movement. So what's more important is that you do the hand gestures. So we went through that at one point in the presentation, to use your hands to emphasize things on the one hand, on the other hand, when you go through numerating and so on. But that should be the only difference. In general, the way that you speak, the pace with what you speak, the presentation, the numbers per slide, the structure, this is all the same. It's really just your non-verbal communication, excluding your hands. So your body, of course, is sitting. You cannot stand straight or move around, but your hands you can still use, and you should use them.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we don't have any further questions right now. So if there are more, you can just type them in until Yascha is still available. I think we have some more minutes. But meanwhile, I maybe have a question you can answer. Would you recommend in an online presentation to write down your speech and read it out, or you still would recommend that people should learn it by heart?
That's a good point. I don't mean that you should sound scripted. You should just know exactly what to say when and in which order. Make sure you have it written down, but speak it out fluently. You can, that's totally possible. It doesn't mean that that only because you have written it down, it also needs to sound scripted. So this is the same for online talks. It's even easier. Actually, that's a good point. You can probably have your speech printed out and lying next to you on your desk, so you can always have a glimpse on it. But this is the same as offline pitching. Just make sure you learn it by heart and you know exactly what you say, because again, the pitch is a race.
Okay, yeah, sure. We don't have any further questions until now. Thanks a lot. It was a great content, great presentation, and we will see if we can upload the presentation then on YouTube. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.